are you?
I'm Batman.
Welcome to another Liquid Bullet Productions. With us today is Mr. Steve Braund. Thanks for coming,
Hello,
Steve.
mate. Good to see you.
So you're actually a feature film sculptor and a prosthetic maker.
That's right, yep.
Yeah. Also you do some costumes and...
I do, yeah, I do a bit of costuming and cosplay, whatever you want to call it, at the weekends when I'm not working on bits and bobs.
A lot of charity work as well for children.
Most of it's charity work at the weekend stuff, yeah. The odd, no, it's 99.9% charity work, really, actually.
Yeah. And you also featured at the opening of Star Wars, didn't you?
We did. I've done a couple now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, test my memory now, we did the Force Awakens.
Yep.
When that came out, I can't remember the year that came out. You probably see it in all the newspapers. There was a massive parade of
Stormtroopers,
and everyone was phoning me up, going, "Oh, you look great as Vader." And I was like, "Nah, I was the Stormtrooper, 74th back from the left." But it was fantastic. Yeah, great night. And then we did the Rise of Skywalker when that came out as well. So yeah, cool. Brilliant nights.
Right, can I just take you back to the beginning, Steve? Just a little bit, sort of where you were born, when you was brought up, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was born in Reading in 1973, which is some time ago now. Spent a couple of years there, then we moved to West London. I grew up really in Hayes, in West London. Went to school, did A-levels, wanted to be a fighter pilot. Everything was set on being a fighter pilot. I did, from about 13 to about 21, I was in the Air Cadets.
Yeah.
And everything was aimed, I'm going to be a fighter pilot. All my studies, everything I did at school, fighter pilot. And I got the flying scholarship in the ATC, which is great. So they send you off to RAF Cranwell for a week, and you do all these, you have to go medicals and training and this and fitness assessments, this, that and the other. I did great on most of that. And I was like, yeah. And I got to the end and they sit you down in front of a computer and there's a joystick and a screen, and you've got there's dots come down the screen, white dots. And then some red ones come down, and you've got to put your crosshair over these red dots. Terrible. Oh, absolutely really? Terrible, yeah. And I got the interview.
What is that for, though?
Well,
what's that for?
It turns out because I didn't play many video games as a kid, my hand-eye coordination, which is weird considering what I've got to do now, is terrible. It's pretty non-existent. And the guy said, I think he was a squadron leader, he said, "You've aced everything else." He said, and some of the other things you could have brought up, you could have improved your fitness if that needed it.
Yeah.
So this is the one thing you just won't be able to improve.
Blimey.
And he said, we can't offer you any further. So then I was like, what am I going to do now? Complete panic, no idea what I'm going to do. Went in to do a bit of shop work, then I moved into IT, and then I got into music. I started doing karaoke when I was about sort of 17, 18, started going to pubs before you should do. Found out I could sing a bit, and I did music for up till I was kind of 35, 36, on and off, semi-pro, up and down the country in covers bands. And we ended up doing an Iron Maiden tribute. It was the last thing I did. I'm a massive Maiden fan, so that was great for me. So I got to pretend to be Bruce Dickinson, wear all the stupid leggings, and I had a clip-in fringe, and we built all the scenery, which has kind of led me into what I do now as well. And then when I got sort of married and realised that you can't do it because Claire works
Yeah.
all week in London.
Sort of family commitments.
If I disappear all weekend and she's working, and we didn't never see each other. So sort of reluctantly I said, I can't do that anymore. Yeah. So she said, well, what do you want to do now then? So I'd been made redundant from IT. She's very clever. She's got a much cleverer job than me. So she said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, you know what? I've always been fascinated since I was a kid. I've always been fascinated with masks and the idea of, you know, you can just transform yourself into a completely different character by just sticking something on your head. So she said, well, I'll have a go. And I did.
So where was the first what sort of interested you to get into like all the costumes and all that? Was there something that inspired you, like a film, or was it something to...
I've loved films. I've always loved films since I was a kid. Batman is my all-time favourite film, the Michael Keaton one, proper one. A massive Star Wars fan. We kind of got into the costuming side of things. This is a bit of another mad story, but I ended up having a bit of inheritance coming to me. So my dad passed away years ago, and we got it was you know a nice thing to happen in a sad way. Yeah. And we sat and had a conversation one night, and I said, I think I want to be Darth Vader. And sort of Claire looked at me and went, what are you talking about? And I said, well, look, there's this thing called the 501st. And there's a branch over here in the UK, and they got really accurate costumes, but what they do is they go out to like hospitals and charity events in costume, in character, and you're basically Darth Vader for the day. And she said, oh, okay. So she said, I think I want to be a Stormtrooper. So we joined. We ended up getting our costumes cleared because you have to submit them. They look at them to make sure all the bits, like all the little buttons, are the right colour, and it's got to be
exact.
Bob on. We started doing it. We sort of fell into it that way.
So that was how it first sort of journey began.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so where would you actually get them sort of costumes from? Because they're like the actual sort of film set costumes, aren't they? They're not like the one you get from a fancy dress shop.
It's really difficult. Yeah, you really have to do your research, and there's a lot of places that sell them that you'll buy something that isn't right. So you have to kind of, if anyone's into it, my advice would be join up and sort of start talking to the people that do it, and they're all really friendly. They'll help you out. You know, we've got a process on the website where you'll be assigned an armourer. So they'll say to you, okay, what do you want to do? You want to be a Stormtrooper? Okay, show me pictures of what you got, and I'll talk you through what's wrong, what's right. A lot of it's to do with how it fits you. So a lot of them have to be trimmed to fit your shape. Obviously, because a lot of them are hard plastic. Yeah. So you don't want your leg wobbling around inside a Stormtrooper thigh too much, or your helmet falling off. So it's tricky. It's time consuming. It's very expensive, but it's massively rewarding.
Yeah. Can I just ask you sort of on that first journey? So now you're going in as Darth Vader. What did you do with that? Where did that take you?
The first time I ever did it, I was probably way too enthusiastic, and I was too, too big, too loud. So you kind of have to. Again, you get a lot of help from people that have done it before. They say, you're moving too quickly. Vader is very purposeful, and he doesn't say a lot. He's not a big conversationalist. So it's. I suppose that goes back to that thing that was fascinating me when I was a kid. You put the costume on, and then you got to find your version of what that character is. I guess.
Yeah. So with that, what sort of things were you doing with Vader? Going to what sort of events and stuff?
The first one we ever did was a charity fete at a school, which was quite small, and that was the good way to jump into it. And then the second event we did was a massive charity music festival up in Leicester. So that was kind of in at the deep end. Then we're walking around this huge showground, and it was just photo. I thought I was going to walk round. I probably got from here to the corner, and that's it. So because it was just like, can I have a photo? Can I have a photo? Can I have a photo? So you do get mobbed.
What was your opinion on when you first done it? What was people's like with the children like seeing you in the Vader? Was it like scared as well as
you get a mixture? Yeah, you do get a mixture. Some kids, and that's this probably the thing I love more, is that just the kids' reactions can be anything from no, oh, get him away, to just utter disbelief. If you've taken, if your costume's good enough, they absolutely believe they're looking at Batman or Iron Man or Darth Vader, and it's just, especially when they're if they're sort of life limited. We did a car show. In fact, I do it every year. There's a great car show in Welling Garden called the Hearts Auto Show, and it's in aid of Make-A-Wish, which obviously do brilliant work. And I'd gone as Batman that year, and we sort of came out of the car park, and this little kid came around the corner with his mum, and he was in a Batman costume, and he's completely stunned. So I've gone, hey, how you doing? And I had a little chat with him, and the kid sort of wandered off. And I'll never forget this. The mum came over and said, I can't thank you enough for that. He's actually pretty poorly. He hasn't got a lot of time left. And the only reason he came today is because he knew that Batman was going to be here, and you've just made his day. Now, I can't break character in Batman because the kid can still see me. And I'm like going, really got me. And I just couldn't react to it.
Yeah.
But that's why I do it. It's those moments, just for the kids. They love it. They do.
Yeah. I was going to say, have you ever had like anyone around you sort of forgot that you're sort of in that character role and said like, "Oh, Steve," and you're like,
all the time.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Yeah.
I suppose you've got to be aware if the children are in that world of believing it's real, aren't they? So
yeah. Well, I just don't react if someone calls me Steve and I'm in costume. Just you're not going to get anything out of me.
Is that sort of programmed in over time though? Or was that
it is. The more you do it, the more you get used to. Yeah, and it's weird. The easier it becomes to. God, it sounds a bit actory, but the easier it becomes to sort of find that character. If you've worn the costume a few times, you put it on. You know where you're going. You know it's kind of part of you, I guess.
Yeah. So what sort of journey did that take after this sort of stage? Where was you sort of going forward with this now?
It's one of those things. You start off with one costume, and then you get another one. And then you think, oh, I won't need any more than two. And then when you've got like 7 or 8.
so the first costume was Vader. What was the
second costume was Stormtrooper.
A Stormtrooper.
Yeah. The thing with Vader is because we do so many events, we're such a big club, there's like hundreds of people, you can only ever have one Darth Vader at an event. We won't let 2 out because you don't see 2 Vaders on screen. So I got to the stage where I was going, I really want to do that event. There's a Darth Vader going. So, what can I do to still go and help out? Well, you've got 2 choices. You can either crew, which is actually in some ways more fun than wearing the costume. So it's crew, you're wearing a t-shirt, a branded UK Garrison t-shirt, and you're there to keep the public safe, you're there to keep the costumers safe.
Yeah.
But you see things you don't see in costume as crew, because the costumes are very limited. So for Vader, for example, I can't see anything below the bottom of my eyes.
Oh, really?
A little bit out of the triangular vent. As a Stormtrooper, nothing. There's nothing. You cannot see anything below there. So you're relying on your crew
to guide you where you're walking.
Because if a little kid comes up and stands here for a photo, I can't see him unless I do like that.
Really?
And then in Vader, you can't really move your head down that much. So, yeah, the crew are invaluable.
Yeah.
Invaluable.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's sort of things like that you don't realise, do you? Like, just by looking at it, you think you can sort of see everywhere.
Can't turn your head in Batman, so that's a no.
You can't turn your head in Batman?
Well, that's why you've probably seen the Keaton Batman film. The scene when he does what's called the bat turn, doesn't he? Now it's become known as the bat turn because he turns his whole body because he can't turn his head. Mr. Keaton has been interviewed about it a few times. He said for the first few times it took him to realise he needed to do that because he was in the costume and he turned his head and the mask just stayed where it was. He couldn't see his eyes.
So what other sort of costumes did you lead into after this one?
As in where am I going to go next?
Yes, you had sort of Darth Vader, Stormtrooper.
So yeah, I've got Darth Vader, Stormtrooper. Then I think I went. The next one was a surprise present from my wife, and she got me the full-on Captain Jack Sparrow costume, which is just brilliant fun because you can get away with murder in that costume. Vader's got to be very serious. Stormtrooper's got to be very serious. Batman's very serious. Almost all the other ones are very serious. Captain Jack Sparrow, do what you want.
How can I be a pirate without my hat? No bloody hat. No bloody sword. Hello there. This is a beautiful sword. Nothing else can have this. I will take it home. Bloody hell! Listen, mate. I'm Captain Jack Sparrow. And you've got some skills with a whip there. But who are you?
I'm Anthony DeLongis.
But I have heard of you. And I believe that is your sword. Oh! Right!
A few
Absolutely
drinks
do it
and make it.
yeah, well, the rum bottle, I should have bought one actually. I've got a cast from an old 17th century rum bottle
Right.
that I moulded and I cast it in resin, but you can't drink out of it.
Yeah.
So what I do is I pour a little bit of rum in top of it, so that when people come, because you'll always get as Captain Jack Sparrow, I guarantee you won't go more than 10 minutes, someone will come up to you and go, why has the rum gone? So I go, well, the rum hasn't gone, mate. There's a little bit in the bottle there. And they go, he's got rum in there. And then they're quite convinced, because you're acting, you don't, with Jack, you kind of always got one of your hips unlocked, so you're a little bit off balance and a little bit all the time. And then they're quite convinced you're drunk.
That must be quite fascinating.
It is,
It
is funny, yeah, it is great.
Can I just ask, so when was he went into the Batman? When was that sort of stage?
Batman, I think, came after Jack. Oh, no, actually, no, Batman might have come before Jack. Batman might have come before Jack Sparrow, actually, yeah.
Yeah, that must have been quite a huge impact for you. The Batman one, was it? Got quite a big following.
Of all the films, it's always been my favourite. I remember seeing at the cinema when it came out, and the beginning intro bit when the sort of camera chases round and it's going in and out, and it sort of pulls out. You remember, and you can see, you realise you've been going around the bat symbol, and I was like, oh, well, this is not Adam West leaping about in a pair of tights, is it? As much as I loved that, this was different, and it changed. God, I could bore you to death with how it changed superhero films, but it really did. It was. First example, it's the first superhero film really to have the suit made out of rubber, and obviously Adam West was
because before they used to be like tights and
So it changed so much, and it just really stuck with me. I thought Keaton's costume was genius, because he's the first one to realise it's not actually about Batman, it's about Bruce Wayne. It's about what kind of a person dresses himself up as a bat, and it's that puzzle that I think he plays differently to anybody that's else ever played it. He plays Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne is the disguise though, because when he's in Batman, that's him. That is Bruce Wayne. When he's out the costume and he's in the cocktail party, sticking his penknife in the top of the thing and putting drinks on trays that Alfred's nearly missed. That's the disguise. He plays it the other way around.
Yeah.
That's genius.
While we're talking about the original Batman, Steve, you also done some work with the original stuntman, Dave Lee.
I have, yeah.
He played the Batman, didn't he, in the original films?
He did, yeah. He was Keaton's stunt double in both of them, actually, in 89 and Returns.
How did that come together of meeting him?
It came via a friend of mine who kind of knows him, and he ended up coming to the UK. And at this point, my wife had also done the Catwoman costume.
Right.
So she'd wanted to learn, how to move in it and how to sort of become the character in a way. So we ended up speaking to Dave on the phone, which was just mad. Imagine you're a massive Batman fan, and one evening the phone rings and you get this, "Hi, it's Dave Lee," and I'm going, "No, who's this? Is that you, Gary?" And it was him, and he was like,
a wind up.
Yeah, guys, I've heard about what you do. Do you want to come down and we'll meet up and I'll run through some of the bat moves? And I'm going, I used to, when I had a job at the BBC years ago, I used to do a little bit of karate, not very good, sort of stopped doing it, and I was like, oh great, well, I wonder what he's going to do. He nearly killed me. He nearly killed me. He had me doing all crazy stretches, and just things that didn't make any sense, I thought. And then at the end of as the session ended, he kind of just stitched it all together, and he was making me do kicks that I couldn't do like 20 years ago. Yeah, hard.
Because he was a good martial artist before he obviously went into the film stuff, wasn't he? So,
yeah. I mean, he still is. I don't know if you've seen any videos of him lately, and he's, this guy's he's a machine. Yeah.
so obviously, you actually had connections with the use of like a Batmobile as well with that.
Yeah, I've done a few gigs with the Batmobile. Yeah, there's a guy I know he owns two actually. He's got a '66, an Adam West one, and a Keaton Batmobile. Yeah, I've driven that a few times.
I've actually driven it.
I've driven it a couple of probably the craziest one. We did an event with the two cars. He lives close to the Ascot Racecourse, so he's gone. We'll drive them down. We'll drive the Batmobiles down. So I'm like, do I have to? So he's in the front driving the Adam West Batmobile, and we're driving through the middle of town, and you can imagine people are like just walking around and going, "There's a Batmobile. There's two Batmobiles." So the first Batmobiles come past, and they've gone, "Look at that!" And then the second, as I've come past, I've got the canopy back, but I'm in full costume, and they're going, Batmobile's driving the Batmobile. And all these kids' cameras going off, and you can hear, well, I think we brought the high street to complete standstill.
stop,
But yeah. And again, I've got that thing, I'm driving it, but I'm inside, I'm going, it's the best thing ever. But my face is like, because you can't spoil it.
So just carrying on from there, you actually done a little bit of filming with Dave as well, didn't you?
Yeah. We've done a couple of times. We put a little bit of film at the end of the first training session, and then we did a thing that it was Dave's idea really, with the Batmobile, and I think there was myself, Dave, and 2 other bats. So it was kind of a little story about the different bats.
Yeah.
And that was again mad. Who ever thought you were going to be able to do that?
It's crazy. So what other sort of stuff was you doing as the Batman? When did you was you going into the hospitals already as Vader and stuff, or did this come later?
Yeah. I started doing the hospital visits as Vader, and then I say moved in. I've done a couple as Jack. I've done a couple as Bat. Done a couple as Iron Man. It's unfortunately not for some time because they've had to stop it.
Can I just ask you a little bit about that sort of work you do?
Of course, yeah.
Sort of poorly children in hospitals. So how did that start out? And
it's through the garrison again. So we've got a relationship with Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Yeah.
Really good. I mean, obviously, amazing work they do. And we tend to do, when we can, we'll go in and we'll do ward days. So we'll be escorted round all the wards, and we'll basically go in and do little visits if the kids want them. Sometimes you can't go in to certain wards because of infection control reasons.
Yeah.
But often you can. Sometimes you have to be wiped down.
Yeah.
But it's probably out of everything I do, it's probably the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, I was going to say
It's
it
the
must
hardest
be.
thing.
Yeah, it must be hard and draining, but it must make you feel good if you're making them happy. So.
Yeah, if you get it right. You can see for however long you're in there for, they've forgotten. They've forgotten where they are, what's going on in the real world, and they're having a conversation with, Iron Man or Batman or whoever. And I can't think of anything else you can give to them that's better for them, really.
Yeah.
Just a little break, just a little bit of a
Just to
respite.
see a little smile on their
Yeah,
face must feel really rewarding when you go home at the end of the day.
You go home exhausted,
Yeah.
but at the same time you go home happy. It's the weirdest.
Because
feeling.
obviously them costumes must be quite heavy as well, aren't they?
Some of them are very heavy, yeah. Some of them.
What sort of length of time can you stay in them for? With
Depends how brave you are. It depends on the costume. So
Really?
Jack Sparrow all day,
Yeah.
because it's fabric. Iron Man probably maybe it's sort of starting to get uncomfortable after 3 hours, 4 hours. So anywhere between those two. Iron Man and Vader are probably the 2 most uncomfortable, and Jack is just the easiest.
How about the Batman one? Because that's is it rubber? Is it?
Yeah, it's not too bad. The weird thing with Batman is it puts your head at a slightly weird angle because you're having to stand like that, and it's obviously you can't move your neck, so you tend to get a bit backache and neckache as Batman.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere in the middle.
I suppose that's weather dependent as well. I mean, in the summer that must be.
You smell like burning tyres in the summer if you don't go in direct sunlight. It's the first thing I learned when I did a great big event out at a kids' farm, like Marsh Farm, at the summer, and it was huge, but it was like 85 degrees out in the heat.
Start melting in that sort of costume.
Yeah, it did. When you start to smell the costume, you're too hot. It's the golden rule.
So what other things have you gone on to with the costumes?
Well, the last one I got, and I keep telling myself it's going to be the last costume I buy, is Iron Man, which is just brilliant. That's again, the thing with as much as I love Batman is now it's moved on and it's 30 odd years old.
Yeah.
It is a lot of the kids are now probably more into Marvel, so you'll probably get a better reaction as Iron Man. But I've got to be a little bit careful with that one because obviously, clearly, I don't look anything like Robert Downey Jr. But I can't have the visor down because this literally it sits right on your face, and you're looking out through 2 little slots that are lit from the back. So you can't see anything. So I have got the visor on a little switch that it goes up and down, but I make sure that's why I've got this beard, and I wear like sunglasses. Try and vaguely do an American accent.
Is that costume sort of all singing, dancing, light up?
Yeah, it all lights up. It's fiberglass, so that's why it's very, very heavy, very restricting. If your nose itches, somebody else has to scratch it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you get your finger to about there. That's it. The visor goes up and down. the hands light, the chest light. So yeah, there's all batteries in my back and everything. So yeah.
Clever stuff. Can I just ask you about, I saw a bit about you. You actually went to America to do some sword fighting with Antonio Banderas?
That was Anthony DeLongis.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. That was a crazy thing as well. That kind of came about kind of via Dave as well, really, because he obviously knows Anthony. Anthony was, for those that don't know, he was Michelle Pfeiffer's whip trainer on Batman Returns. And he's done, I mean, it's probably quicker to tell you he hasn't worked with, he's worked with everyone. He also did, I think he did Indiana Jones, he was Harrison Ford's whip trainer on Indy. So Anthony very kindly went out to see, Dave very kindly went out to see Anthony and sort of sent us a little video from the States going, oh, you never guess where I am, he's driving across this desert, and we're looking at this screen going, where's he going? He's going in the middle of nowhere. And then it sort of camera pans around and there's Anthony with a whip and he does a few moves for Claire and and there's your tail, and he ends up putting the whip behind and we're like, wow, it's amazing. So we ended up chatting to Anthony via email, and he was like, well, you guys should come out and train. And we think, well, we need holiday. We've been pretty good. We've been fairly sort of conservative and where we've been for a holiday. Let's go nuts. Let's go to California and have a go. So we booked it, went out, and it turned out that he was splitting the days in half. So we'd spend the morning training Claire on the whip, and in the afternoon he would train me on the sword for Jack.
Right, yeah.
Again, just incredible. The amount you can learn in such a short time is mad. We ended up, I actually took my Jack Sparrow costume out there, most of it, and at the end of it, I didn't want to sword fight him. I'm not going to sword fight him. The guy is like, just not even going to go there. But I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I did like a little comedy sketch with him? So I said, would you mind if we did this little comedy? I had this idea for a little thing, and he was like, yeah, sure. And he was lovely, and we filmed this little thing, and it's like a couple of minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Lovely guy.
So have you done any sort of, was the sort of stuff you wanted to do just for the costume, or would you actually do that in sort of movie roles and stuff?
I'd love to, but if I had the time, I don't know. Yeah, I probably haven't got the time to do most of the stuff I should be doing now. Yeah, yeah, I do a little bit in costumes. Ideally, we'd want to put something together with somebody else who knows, is trained, because it's kind of set moves in certain ways that, obviously you know what the other person's going to do, but it's making it look like you don't know what they're going to do. So you don't want to be putting your sword up to block before they've, otherwise it looks weird. I hope he's not watching now and he doesn't correct me on this.
So they very sort of have to be rehearsed, don't they, to get it correct and stuff.
Yeah. Once you get to his level, obviously you can you can read it. He did a great fight scene with Jet Li. I think it was in Fearless, which I don't know if you've ever seen that. He's just and so fast, and he just did it.
Yeah,
he's got some great stories, absolutely brilliant stories.
So then, when did you go from the sort of costumes, sort of going forward now? Obviously, eventually you've gone on to this making your own stuff.
A lot of that started out when I started to do the sculpting bits for enjoyment, and then the costume bit kind of took a ramp up when I decided I was going to do Batman, and I realised that all the suits that you get that have got screen news lineage that have come from Keaton don't fit because I'm too tall and I'm a bit rounder. So the suit was kind of finishing here, and there was a little bit of belly poke, and it was like, oh, I can't have that. So I ended up having to sculpt my own Batsuit. Right.
How do you go about that? How do you sculpt the Batsuit?
Yeah, that's what I remember asking myself the same question. What am I going to do? I can't do this. Basically, out of a great big mould, you just have to have an armature that you sculpt onto, and then it's a lot of clay for that suit. And you kind of, it's very difficult to describe. You start off by sticking the clay on, and you basically start off with big tools, big loops with teeth in, and you're adding on and ripping away, and getting your big shapes right. And the smaller you go, the more detailed you go, the smaller and finer your tool gets. So you end up, when you're doing the stage before you're putting actual skin texture on, you end up with like a little brass tube, and it's got a tiny little curled guitar string in the end of it.
So how did you first get involved in like doing that yourself? Did you sort of self-taught yourself, or watch videos to learn, or?
Yeah, I started off just grabbing some clay and a couple of sculpting tools and seeing what came out. And then Claire bought me the DVDs from Neil Gorton on Christmas, which if anyone's getting into it, I really recommend. It covers, I think it's called Creating Character Prosthetics in Silicone. And it's long, it's hours, but it basically covers the process of starting off with a life cast of someone's head, and then making an armature, then sculpting over the top of that, then moulding it, then taking that apart, then cleaning it all out, then putting it back together, and then injecting the silicone in and making the finished piece. So it's a long process to do.
A lot of,
it is a lot of
technical hard work involved.
There's a lot of a lot of it's technical, a lot of it's kind of weird chemistry stuff. So certain chemicals won't work with others. Certain chemicals need to be certain temperatures in order to set. You know, they're not all 50-50 mix, for example. Some might be 100% to 120%.
So what are these sort of things made out of as such?
It will vary. Most of the stuff I do, most of the masks and stuff I do is very soft silicone, because ideally you want it to move with your face.
Right.
Ideally, the cowls, the sort of Batman cowls, are polyurethane rubber. So probably those are the main two things. Those and like a solid resin sometimes for certain bits. You'll cast in like basically a hard plastic.
So do you have to buy them in liquid form and sort of then set them and dry them? Or?
Yeah, you do. You have to buy them in liquid form. A lot of them are quite nasty. A lot of the plastics and a lot of the rubbers are quite nasty. So you have to have the proper, don't buy a paper respirator from Wix and think you're going to be all right, because it's not. It's, you really need a proper face-fitting one with chemical filters.
Right.
Sometimes a full face one, because some of this stuff will go, it gets into your body anyway. It can, so it'll go through the mucous membranes on your eyes. Some of these chemicals.
It's got dangerous stuff there.
Yeah. But be careful, be cautious. Yeah.
Can I just ask you now? We're talking about the sort of sculpting stuff. How did you first sort of get onto sort of making the masks and stuff?
The first one I did, I did a course with a guy called Don Lanning, who's sculpted. What would you know? That he sculpted a load of stuff. Probably the most recent thing he did was the alien suit from the new Lost in Space. He did the the monster. It's not a monster; it's a robot. He did that, and he came over to the UK and did a training course at Gorton Studios. Obviously, I knew about Gorton Studios because I had Neil's DVDs, and I was like, "What? We've always had this thing. If you want to learn from someone and you want to learn to do something, go and pay the money as much as you can afford to learn from the best person, because you'll learn more and you'll learn quicker." So I thought Don's up here, isn't he, as far as a sculptor goes. So yeah, we went and did a course for a week, and it was how to design and sculpt a creature.
Can you talk us through that? Sort of how did that sort of set up? And
so yeah, we went to it was in Aylesbury, Gorton Studios. So I stayed over for the week, and I'm in the hotel the night before the course, and I'm on the phone to the wife. And she said, "Well, what are you going to sculpt?" I said, they'll tell you when you get there. And she said, no, you're going to want a concept. They're going to probably want a concept. It's how films work. I'm like, well, I don't know. What am I going to do? And now she's like 10 o'clock. I've got to be there at 8 o'clock next morning, and I've got no idea what I'm going to sculpt. I was going to wing it. So then she said, well, that's not a very good idea. So we had a chat, and then we came up with this idea of Mr. Punch from the old Punch and Judy things. I said, well, what about if I did Mr. Punch, but like not a wooden puppet? What if I gave him like mad, like the Mad Punch features, but with like a skin texture, and made him look a bit more realistic? So she said, yeah, that sounds good. So that's what I went in the next morning, and she was right. He went round the class, introduced everybody, and then he comes and goes, what's your concept? And I'm like, oh, thank God for that. Can you imagine if I'd have been caught on the up there in front of like one of the greatest sculptors in the world? What's your concept? I don't know.
So Steve, you brought this is your first one you've done.
This is him, yeah.
And you brought him with you.
Yeah, this is him. He's handsome, isn't he? Yeah.
So that was your first one you ever made yourself?
This is the first large sculpture I ever did. Yeah, hello. He was sculpted in wed clay over an armature, and then I actually brought the sculpture back, and I moulded it, but because it wasn't sculpted over an armature that's suitable for a mask, I might resculpt him one day. I've got a bit of a hankering to resculpt him, actually, as ugly as he is. Yeah, but that was interesting because we used wed clay, which is a water clay for that, and I've never used that before. I've never used wed clay before, so that was a bit of a learning process.
So how many hours does that take to make something like the finished product?
To get to the rubber, it can vary massively. It depends on how long the sculpt. This sculpt, I did it in a week, which is pretty quick. Most of the stuff you wouldn't.
So the first thing is you make it from clay first, the sculpture, and then you can make the mask from that. Yeah,
so you would have a head form, which would be the inside of this.
Yep.
So basically, you'd have like a resin or a fiberglass head, human head. And then over the top of that, you'll sculpt your mask, making sure you've got eye holes, mouth holes, nose holes. Then once that's done, you then got to build a huge mould out of, well, you can do it a couple of ways. You can use epoxy resins, you can use fiberglass resins, but basically a solid mould, front and back. So you'd have a big wall of clay around here, and you build a mould that side, you take that wall of clay off, and then you mould the back. So you end up with like a clamshell.
Right.
So then you have to take that clamshell apart, at which point everything you sculpted is gone. It's bin fodder. So if you mess that mould up, you've had it. You've got to start everything from the beginning. No. So that is squeaky pants moment. Then when you take the mould apart, you go, oh, please don't let there be any holes or cracks or, mismoulded bits.
Yeah.
So you take that apart and then you clean it all out. You've got to use white spirit to clean out all the clay. Once that's all done, then you bolt that mould together over the top of that armature, and what you'll be left with is a gap between those two, the inner bit and the outer mould. So somewhere, usually in the bottom, you'll have a tube going into that inside mould, and that's where you squirt your silicone in, and then it fills that gap, fills that mould on the inside. So you end up with a hollow head on the inside and a silicone face. So basically you get your face on the inside and your character face on the outside. That's probably the easiest way of saying it.
Blimey. So how long does it sort of take making all these, obviously all the lines and the details? And
you can spend like weeks doing that.
Weeks
you could spend
on one
weeks
mask.
doing that. Yeah.
Or is that just obviously making the first initial setup?
Weirdly enough, I personally find it's not the skin texture and that takes the time for me. I could probably spend more time on getting the character right, so finding, what you call your forms, your big shapes. I might do that nose. So you tend to start with the profile. So the first thing you'll sculpt is this shape. You'll sculpt the outside shape in just a sausage of clay. You don't do anything else, just that. You just set that shape, and then you sort of turn it around, and then you figure out how far your eyebrows are going to come out, where your cheekbones are going to go. That can take forever to do. Because if you're in no rush, if there's no pressure and there's no deadline, it's just for you and for fun, you can mess about with that for weeks. And sometimes you'll have a Bob Ross moment. You'll have a happy little accident. You'll take a lump out of the clay and you go, and then you go, oh, that's really good. I really like that. And you're doing that the other side.
So once your actual clay mould's made, can you then use that again for the same? To keep remaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. So once all your fiberglass is made, you can bolt that and unbolt it as many times as you like within reason. It will fall apart eventually, but it should. If you've done a good job, it should last years. So then, you could just make, if you need to do 3, 4, 5 masks, you just bolt it together, silicone in, pull it out. Next one, bolt it in, silicone. It's a bit longer than that, but it's a process. You just follow and repeat the process. Really.
Can I just ask, while we're talking about the sculpting, do you sort of have a sort of a good hand with like crafting stuff? Because thinking of my own personal view, I can't even draw a picture. I can't imagine me being able to do that much detail. And so I just wondered on your background of sort of creating stuff.
That's a really good question. I did do art. I didn't do A-level art, but I did do GCSE art, and it was the only thing I got an A at. So that probably should have told me something at the time, but I was so I want to be a fighter pilot. I didn't. It's definitely something you can learn. A lot of it is understanding anatomy, weirdly. So you're not always sculpting. There's a really good phrase. I love it. It's got a lot of sculptors say, don't rush to the surface. a guy called Richard Martin, who I did a training course with, who is just a genius for life. He does like likeness work. He's done a Daniel Craig, and you just would look at it and you'd think it was Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
But the trick to that is you don't sculpt Daniel Craig straight away. You kind of work out where all the bones are underneath. You know, how far does his brow come out? Where, you know, this, what shapes that? How far away is that? A lot of its distances. How far away is that from that? So you can learn all that from anatomy books, and that'll give you a good solid understanding of what you're actually sculpting.
I suppose it'd just make it harder for you if you didn't have that sort of artistic sort of background or whatever. Probably be a bit more training to get to that standard.
Yeah, it may take a little longer, but there's a Stan Winston school that people can have a look at. That's incredible. There's hours and hours of knowledge on there if you're looking to get into it.
Yeah, it's amazing really that you sort of don't really know what goes into the behind the scenes of films, and like the costumes, the masks. It's a real eye opener of sort of what the people in the background do, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by that. One of the things I loved about when DVDs and before that VHSs started coming out and you could take home a film was you started getting these extras. You never got them, but there was never you never went to the cinema and there was a 20-minute thing on, you know, how they made the mask for whatever, and these things started to come, and I was like, oh, behind the scenes, I'm liking this. This is what goes on behind the curtain, is it?
So what other things have you created for yourself?
I've done a few, so let's pop him back down there and we'll grab this fella. So this is my main man. Yeah, this is the Keaton cowl. This is cast off of an original screen used, not a cowl, but a master. So the thing with those is a lot of them is because all the ones in the films were made of foam latex, which doesn't last well over the time, and it will tend to stretch and bag over time. So a lot of the masters that have been moulded from the screen used cowls now have been moulded from a cowl that was at the end of the filming.
Right.
So a lot of the problems with those are, once Keaton had put them on for the day and they were filming, he generally wouldn't take them off for breaks. What he would do is he would pull the top bit back over his head and he'd put his head out of the mouth.
Right.
So then what you get is this bit
stretching.
And in fact, if you watch the film really closely, there's some scenes where you can see it's really gappy. There's a bit where when he's holding Jack Nicholson over the edge, before he drops him into the acid, you can really see a gap.
Oh, really?
So it's probably filmed later on towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
I didn't sculpt all of this one. I moulded a screen used master, and I basically just sort of corrected. I brought the mouth in a little bit. I changed the shape of the ears a little bit. The screen used ones I thought were a little more curved here. Did a few things just kind of tidy it up so it fitted a bit better.
Yeah.
But this is the cowl I actually use when I go out to do.
Oh, that is the actual one you use?
Yeah, this is him. Yeah.
Oh, so you made your own costume?
I did, yeah. Kind of like a cross between Alfred, probably more Alfred to be fair to Bruce Wayne.
That must feel quite rewarding though, actually, from first starting out buying costumes to go out in, and now you're creating your own costumes.
Yeah, it's really nice. You know, if you go to sort of like a Comic Con and that, we tend to go and do those to try and promote the club, you know, and a lot of people go to Comic Con for fun and they'll see the Garrison stand and go, oh, I've seen what you guys do, you know, how do we get involved? And we can say, well, we can come and join us on the website and we'll help you, you know. It's, it's nice when you hear people ask, oh, look at that Batman, that really looks like Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
So I sort of try and do the Michael Keaton pout, you know.
Can we just go through? You've got a few masks to show us there, Steve. Just have a little look through them.
So this is another one that I wear that I did for me again. This is it's a little bit softer, this one. So this is very soft silicone. This is Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, which is another one of my costumes. I don't have a costume problem. So he would be worn under the robe. This is done over that core again. So you can see, he's really stretchy. He fits pretty much like a glove over your head. So the idea is that you don't want to be like you're wearing a latex mask. You're just wearing a mask. Nothing happens with it. With the silicone, once you've got them on, and you can have a little chat with, it'll move with your mouth to quite a large extent, really. Yeah. So he's probably quite recent, that one. And then this one I don't wear, but I did this for I did this for a friend of mine who's he's a Hellboy costumer,
Yep.
as you might be able to tell, and he built himself his costume. It's accurate to like the stitching on the t-shirt, the buttons. He's done all the little bits on the belt and everything that he has. So he said, "Look, would you be able to do a Hellboy?" So yeah, great. I love that film. Yeah, I'd love to have a go at sculpting that. So again, this is another silicone mask. He just puts a bit of contact in, puts a bit of red around his eyes, pops a mask on, away he goes.
There you go.
He's about 6'2" as well, and he's a really big guy. He's a copper. So he's quite intimidating. When he puts on Hellboy, it proper looks like Hellboy. He's got the great big, the right hand of doom and everything. Yeah.
So Steve, now we're into this sort of sculpting and making stuff. Can you actually make masks for people? Do you do your own business for this sort of thing?
I do, yeah. I run a company called Mind Magic Studios, and that's kind of what I do now. Yeah, I've actually done, which I can't tell you about, not quite. I've done a film which should have been coming out hopefully last year, but obviously COVID. So that didn't happen. It's a comedy horror. It's called Manfish, and I did the creature, the Manfish creature for those guys. Really good experience working with them. Great team. I've seen what's called a sales trailer, and it's really, you've done some work for someone, and you look at it and you're going, oh God, I'm so. What if I don't like what they've done with it, and then what if I don't find it funny? And you get like a bit, what? And I fell about laughing. I just thought it's totally my sense of humour. It's really, really funny. So I believe they're kind of in distribution talks with that at the moment.
So are you actually on set with them for that, or do you just make the moulds for them?
I just made the mask offset, but they sent me through some concept drawings. I said, this is kind of what we're looking for. There were good drawings, and kind of immediately I got the idea of what they want. So I did a couple of test sculpts, and they were like, we like that, but maybe that could be like, the eyes a bit smaller. And I was like, yeah, okay, I thought that as well. Let's change that. Couple of twos and fros. Yeah, we like that. Away you go. Mould it, cast it. So so that's coming out hopefully soon.
Yeah. So is that sort of going forward? Is that what you're going to be aiming for now, moving into sort of film sets all the time with masks?
Yeah, very much. I've just finished this guy actually. This one's these come out of my head. He was a collaboration with a guy in the States. This one, he's called Braund. So my plan is that I want to do original characters. There's a few companies out there that do great work, but a lot of them are based in fact, I think all of them pretty much, apart from 2 or 3, are based in the States. So if you want to get this sort of thing in over here, it's import. I mean, these the other thing is these are quite heavy, so the shipping cost and the insurance for this is expensive to get from the States. So my plan is to sort of do as many different characters as I can come up with, and then just kind of expand that range. So yeah, he's the first one. I've got a scary clown, which my daughter absolutely hates. If she goes into the room upstairs, she'll just go and turn it round. And I can't look at that. I've got him. I've got a demon that I'm working on as well at the minute, and then a few other ideas. So hopefully this year I'll have 2 or 3 or 4 sort of new ones coming out that, we'll see where they go.
Marvellous. Steve, can we just get some details from you? So if anyone was interested in getting a mask made from you, or for film sets, or for you doing for just personal use as well? If
absolutely.
Someone wanted a fancy dress?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could just give us the details of all your business and stuff.
Yeah, so it's Mind Magic Studios. The website is www.mindmagicstudios.com. I'm on Facebook as Mind Magic Studios and Instagram. So yeah, if anyone is interested, by all means, I'm always happy to chat to ideas and come up with crazy stuff. That's what it's all about for me. It's building the characters. That's the fun bit. So.
I'm just going to finish with a last little question. Have you got any funny stories for us, Steve?
I've got many funny stories. Have I got any funny stories I can actually tell you? You might have to give me a minute to think about this one.
I just figured with all the costumes and going to all these different events,
I have.
You must see some funny things come up.
Most of them are probably unrepeatable.
All right, Steve, we'll start winding it up there then, mate. Thanks for coming, and I wish you all the best of luck in your new business.
Thanks very much,
Hope it all goes well for you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Lovely. Really enjoyed that. Thanks a lot.
Mate.
Cheers.